We would ask that you would stand with us for a moment of silence and as well, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Continue with roll call.
Granquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Moaning.
Here.
Faust.
Here.
File.
Here.
All right, under action items, I would ask for approval of the consent agenda as provided you.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Motion with a second to approve the consent agenda. If you would please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
And as well, approval of the full agenda as included in your packet.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
A motion with a second to approve the full agenda. Again, council, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
Okay, under public hearings. First public hearing tonight is for a waiver of required connection to the city sewer system at the request of Byron and Jill Wiley. And I'm going to open this public hearing. And Mark, you're going to talk to us too regarding this.
Mayor and Council, the Wileys, they are proposing to build a house at 606 North 37th Street. They are here tonight if you have any questions for them, but basically the previous house had a septic system, and that house, I believe, was demoed. And city code requires that properties within 300 feet of the city sewer connect to the sewer system. However, a waiver may be granted if the distance to the sewer is more than 450 feet from the habitable building, or any other natural barriers are in the way, make it impractical. Their proposed building, that they're planning on rebuilding a house there, and that proposed structure is going to be more than 450 feet away from the sewer. It also, there is a little bit of a ditch between there and the sewer that it, that could connect to, that's within 300 feet. That makes it hard to connect via gravity. Likely that this property will likely be served from the south when the property to the south of this is developed. It's undeveloped property to the south of them.
Right.
And so that's the natural corridor for where this will be served. So our recommendation would be to allow the waiver with the stipulation that they need to bring a service line from the future main when that property is developed to the south to their south property line. So with that, I'd answer any questions you may have, or if you have any questions for the Wileys, they are here.
Mark, if the septic system, current septic system fails sometime between now and new development, they would have to then hook on?
I believe they would still be allowed they would at least be able to seek another waiver, because if that property to the south is still not developed, then the sewer that they would connect to still would not be within that 300 feet or 450 feet from the habitable building. So if they build a new house with a new septic system and that septic system fails before the property to the south were to be developed, then likely, I guess at a minimum, we could probably identify that in an agreement or the resolution. We did have, following this item, we did have an agreement related to this. However, consulting with Clint, who is not here, I was talking with him on a cell phone today, we are going to recommend that we table the following action item, and then along with that table, ask if you direct us to prepare a resolution and or an agreement to bring back before you with kind of some of those details hammered out. That could be one detail that we could address in that waiver, whether they could redo the septic in the future.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, council?
What was their time frame they had to say the sewer went into the south? They have so many days, months, years before they'd have to come out of that?
We would just, we didn't have a time frame on there as far as running the sewer service line. Basically, we requested that they would at least run the service line to their south property line. That way, that corridor gets reserved for their service line. Historically, we have not required folks to connect to the city sewer if they have a good working septic system. And so if this septic system were to, remain good, we wouldn't make them connect until that septic failed, or until DEQ or someone else will tell us you need to connect. But historically, we have not required folks to connect until their septic fails.
Any other questions? Okay, so what you're asking of us is to,
On the following agenda item, we would request that you table that agreement.
Okay, I
and
get it.
Along with that motion for the table, just to direct us to either come back with another resolution and/or agreement after that day, later this week. I can
Gotcha.
hammer out those details with Clint and bring it back for you at the future
Okay.
meeting.
okay. All right, thanks, Mark. As this is a public hearing, is there anyone else that wants to speak to this issue or may have questions? If not, then I'll go ahead and close this public hearing. And regarding the consideration of approval of the agreement, I'm looking then for a motion to table at the request of staff in order to have further discussion with city attorney.
I'll make the motion to table item 24.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion with a second to table the consideration of approval as expressed by Mark. And with that, I would ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion to table carries.
Okay. We'll move on down to public hearing at the request of Ray and Julie Sala to consider a zoning change from A Ag District to SR Suburban Residential District on property located at 5200 West Benjamin Avenue. I will open this public hearing and look for discussion on this. Are you going to speak to this one, Val?
Yes, I'll introduce this.
Okay.
Their property is in the northwest corner of 49th Street and Benjamin Avenue. So they're right across the street from Deer Hollow and Deer Run. And Ray is here today that he could speak to you as to why he would prefer to have this go from ag zoning to SR, if you'd like.
Okay, Ray, you ready to come forward? We're going to let you sign in for us, if you will.
Basically, my wife and I have lived out where we're at now since 1997. We have about 17 and a half acres now. What we'd like to do is split that in approximately half, so about 8.5 acres per lot. The place that we have now is just getting to be a lot of work for us and a lot of maintenance and a lot of steps. And so what we'd like to do is have, and I don't know for sure if it's going to work, but we'd like to have one of our kids move into that house. There's a barn currently on that location. We'd like to, with them living there, we'd still have access to that, horses and my shop and all those things. And then we'd like to build a smaller house down the hill from there that would be more age-friendly, less steps and those kinds of things and less maintenance. I don't know, should I speak to the conditional use permit now or wait till later? Okay. We also, at being zoned ag, we've always had horses and dogs and those kinds of things. When we split that, if possible, we would like to have a conditional use permit to continue to have the horses and be able to do the things that we've been doing now. So right now we have 7 horses on that 17 acres, and so we kind of fall in the 2 horses per acre rule and should be okay. But if you have any questions, I would be more than willing to answer them for you.
Council, any questions for Ray? Okay,
Thank you. for your
thank
time.
you.
I appreciate
Appreciate your being here. Anyone else that wants to come forward and speak to this may have questions of? Okay, seeing none. Planning Commission, any discussion here? Quiet group tonight. All right, if nothing further then, how about a Planning Commission report?
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on Tuesday, May 17, 2016, at the request of Ray and Julie Stala to consider a zone change from agricultural to suburban residential on property at 5200 West Benjamin. The Planning Commission recommends approval on an 8-0 vote.
All right, with that, we'll close the hearing and look for consideration of ordinance number 539, approving the zone change from A Ag to SR Suburban Residential District on property located at 5200 West Benjamin Avenue.
Your Honor, I would introduce ordinance number 5393 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. We need short title on this, Beth?
Yes.
Okay,
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
and with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5393 carries on first reading.
All right,
Your Honor, I move we suspend the rules, pass ordinance 5393 on second and third.
Second that, Your Honor.
all right, we have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5393 on second and third. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5393 carries on second and third.
All right. Next is a public hearing to consider feasibility of an amendment to the present comprehensive plan to change single-family residential to medium-density residential on property located at 604 West Walnut Avenue. And we'll open this hearing, and again, Val, you're going to introduce for us?
Yes, thank you. Number 27 and 28 is the comprehensive plan on 604 West Walnut, and then 29 and 30 is the zone change that goes along with it. But the zone change request also needs a comprehensive plan request because the comp plan currently says that it's single-family residential, and they want to change it to R2, which would be a medium-density residential, so that's why the comp plan change.
Okay. Any questions for Val at all, council, regarding this? Okay, as this is a public hearing, is there anyone that wants to come forward and speak to this or may have questions? Please feel free. We'll come forward and we'd ask you to sign in and state your name for us.
My name is Brian Van Eyckman. I'm the property owner.
While he's signing in on that, I will, since Val reminded me that the public hearing, item 29 as well, to consider the zoning change from R1 to R2. I will actually open that public hearing along with, so.
Okay. So I bought the property about 3 years ago. It's been operated as a non-conforming duplex indefinitely, as far as I know.
Okay,
I'm not sure when that changeover ever happened. It was way before my time. But I would like to convert it over to a conforming duplex in order to basically justify the improvements on the building itself, or on the property itself.
okay. So right now, it's sitting there as such, as a duplex.
It is as a duplex.
Okay.
Non-conforming duplex.
Okay. Appreciate you being here.
No problem.
All right, any questions for him at all?
Not so much for you, sir, but do we have enough acreage or square footage there for the duplex area?
I don't know if duplex is really the right word for it. It's almost like a basement apartment, or a first floor
It's a-
apartment and a second floor apartment, is that right?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct.
so it's stacked, actually.
Yeah,
Right.
both are at about 1,000 square foot.
Okay.
But they do have enough parking for 2 units, so we made sure to check that, because we need 2 parking spaces off-street per unit, and there's enough.
Okay. That was my next question, because that's always the largest concern when you get into a residential area. It's like, you get too many cars for a single structure, so.
Definitely.
Okay. Any other questions at all? All right, thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else that wants to speak to this at all? May have questions? I'm seeing none. So, let's see. Any further discussion from this council? All right, Beth, you got a planning commission report on this?
The Norfolk
Take it.
Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 17th, 2016, to consider amending the comp plan from single-family to residential to medium-density residential at 604 West Walnut. Brian Von Egmond applied for a rezone of this property, which requires an amendment to the comp plan. The Planning Commission recommends approval on the request on an 8-0 vote. And then they also held a public hearing regarding, I can get there,
The zoning change? Okay, got it, I'm with you.
on Tuesday, May 17th, to consider the zone change from R1 single family to R2 1 and 2 family residential at the same location at 604 West Walnut, and the Planning Commission recommends approval of the zone change request on an 8-0 vote.
Okay, with that then, I will close both public hearings and look for consideration of ordinance number 5394, amending the city's comp plan from single-family residential to medium-density residential on the property located at 604 West Walnut Avenue.
Your Honor, I would offer for consideration ordinance number 5394.
And we have a motion with a second. A short title, Beth?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the future land use map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
All right, and I would ask for your vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5394 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5394 on second and third reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. If no further discussion, to suspend the rules and pass on second and third, I would take your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5394 carries on second and third reading.
And next would be consideration of ordinance 5395, approving the zone change from R1 Single Family to R2 1 and 2 Family Residential on same property, 604 West Walnut Avenue. Looking,
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5395.
Second.
all right, we have a motion with a second. Short title, Beth?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when the ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of the ordinance in pamphlet form.
And with that, if you'd please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5395 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move that we suspend the rules and approve ordinance 5395 on second and third readings.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5395 on second and third. Again, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5395 carries on second and third.
Okay, under our regular agenda, consideration of approval of ordinance number 5396, amending section 24-164 of the city code to allow parking on the east side of 7th Street between Michigan Avenue and Paswalk Avenue. I'm asking for consideration of.
Your Honor, I would offer for consideration ordinance number 5396.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second, and it looks like discussion is going to be
Yes,
brought on by you.
absolutely, Mayor and Council. As you're aware, this is a situation that collectively we've been working on for a number of months now. It was prompted by Nebraska Central Railroad having a concern of vehicles parked on their property, on their private property along 7th Street, and the fact that parking on the city terrace is illegal. We considered several different options through the course of those discussions, had 2 neighborhood meetings. The last neighborhood meeting was May 2nd as requested by the mayor and council, that staff call that meeting, which we had. There's approximately 21 property owners between Michigan Avenue and Paswalk Avenue. Of those property owners that night, 7 property owners signed in to the meeting. We discussed the facts of the situation. We discussed the options that were available to the neighborhood. The thing that's unique about this neighborhood is there's no alleyway to the west of the homes there, so their parking is very limited to their driveways, and that's why the folks down there were using the terrace for a number of years. So we're trying to create a situation where they have some access to additional parking along there, and then also allow us to continue with our traffic patterns down on 7th Street. So the options in front of you tonight, really, as far as I can tell, is creating a paving district and pave the terrace with assessments. That's really not in front of you. That's an option, not in front of you tonight. The things we discussed, I'll rephrase that, Your Honor. The things we discussed at the last meeting was creating a paving district and paving the terrace with assessments either 10, 15, or 20 years. Approximate cost in those assessments would be about $120,000, which would be a neighborhood cost. Option 2 would be allow parking on the street. We just have to remove the signs in our option 2 and stripe the street accordingly. Probably be about $200 to $500 worth of city cost. We are out striping currently right now this time of year. I'll remind you that South 7th Street is the same width as Madison Avenue and the same width as Prospect Avenue, and carrying the same sorts of volumes of traffic in this particular area of those streets. So the traffic is very similar to that, and we have parking on both of those other streets, and traffic flow seems to be working fine there. The third option would be not to allow parking at all, which would mean take it off the private property, obviously, take it off the city terrace, which is illegal, and not allow it on the 7th Street, which was not very popular at all with the neighborhood down there for obvious reasons, because many of these families have more than one vehicle, and they don't have the alleyway again. The fourth option, which isn't very good, really an option in my opinion, but I'll say it anyways, leave the situation as it is. It's an illegal situation, and it really harms our ability to be consistent in an enforcement standpoint across the city. We have no parking on terraces for a lot of reasons. And this situation, though it is relatively unique, does have consequences if we don't enforce the ordinance that are in front of us from a public safety and just from a general order of the city standpoint. So all those options were discussed. I can tell you that in the last meeting, the neighborhood meeting, of the 7 property owners that were there, 5 of them wanted to try the parking on the street. One young lady said her and her husband preferred the assessments, but were willing to try the parking, and then the remaining neighbor seemed to just want to leave it as it is. So that's my report. That's where we're at with it tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Shane, 2 things or 2 questions. One, if we proceed as this is presented here, there's nothing that, in 6 months from now or 9 months from now that this seems to be really detrimental and not working, that we wouldn't be able to proceed down a different avenue?
Absolutely. You'd still have all the options available to you, from widening the street to paving the terrace to not allowing parking, or, you could actually, recapture the whole situation in any format the mayor and council chose to.
Okay. And the second question, so if it passes this evening, it would go into effect once you got the signs changed, I take it, or what kind of?
If it passes in all 3 readings, we're out striping right now, so we would put it in our book of business and our schedule, and we'd have that striped relatively soon. In fact, I could see it striped by the end of the week, and then the signs pulled. There is no parking signs down there currently, a P with a circle and a cross through them. So we'd pull those signs, and obviously the ordinance would stand and parking would be allowed on the east side if that was the choice of the mayor and council. But before we did that, we would stripe the street accordingly. If you look at Madison Avenue from 7th Street west, you'll see the striping, and you'll see how the traffic lanes correspond with the parking on one side of that street. We'd do the same to allow for the gaps and to allow for people to see what their travel lanes are like, to facilitate the travel of the public. So we'd want to do that first, and we'd do that as soon as we were able to do it, so relatively quickly.
Then the final question, so once that's all done that way, I mean, I anticipate that there'll probably be a few laggers that either, aren't paying attention to this meeting, which surprises me. Or, they just don't get the news that way. I'm assuming as soon as we change the signs over, we're not out there throwing tickets on everybody immediately, or at least financial tickets. There would be some type of warning in there.
I'm sure Chief Meisner would advise his staff to use their discretion, and, it's a growing period, so, we'd give warnings first of all, and then come into compliance with the ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then Shane, the speed limit would be same, reduced a little bit? Would it be same as Madison
Well, I think
Avenue
we
west of
leave the
7th?
speed- I think the speed limit would remain the same. However, if you have parking on the street, I know one of the complaints of the neighborhoods was that cars sometimes travel relatively fast
Yep.
down there. Just by human nature, if you had parking on one side, it squeezes the street down just a bit, so I think traffic patterns would slow. I don't think they'd stand at a crawl, they would go to a crawl, but they would slow perhaps considerably because the traffic lanes are a bit smaller. So hopefully that would help with the concerns of the neighborhoods. But as far as addressing the speed limits, that's something we'd have to reassess, and we could study some more if we needed to see what those patterns are like. But I don't anticipate changing the speed limit at this time.
Is the speed limit the same on 7th as it is on Madison?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Is it, Chief? Chief's shaking his head. He believes it is, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Comments? Okay. Short title, Beth?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 24-164 of the official city code to allow parking on the east side of South 7th Street between Michigan Avenue and Paswalk Avenue, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
All right, with that, council, I would ask you to vote.
Voting in favor of the ordinance, council members Lange, Merrill, Murin, Moaning, Faust, File. Voting against the ordinance, Granquist and Clausen. Ordinance 5396 carries on first reading.
Mayor, I move to suspend the rules and approve ordinance number 5396 on second and third reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5396 on second and third reading. Any discussion? If not, please vote.
Voting in favor of suspension of the rules on second and third reading, council members Lange, Merrill, Murin, Moaning, Faust, File. Voting against the suspension of the rules, council members Granquist and Clausen. Ordinance 5396, suspension of the rules, carries, and it carries on second and third reading.
All right. I appreciate all of you that have been a part of this ongoing. There's been great discussion, and I think we've reached an opportunity to give it a try and see how it works out. So again, I appreciate your cooperation. It's been a lot of discussion over a lot of months, so thanks again. And next, we're going to look for consideration of approval of ordinance number 5397, amending section 26-15 of the city code to require inspection of private fire hydrants according to 2002 edition of the National Fire Protection Association standards. The ordinance also changes other sections of chapter 26 to change reference from water commissioner to water and sewer district. And so with that, I would look for consideration of.
I'll offer consideration of ordinance number 5397, Your Honor.
Second that, Your Honor.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. Who's speaking to this?
Myself and Terry.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. What we're looking to do is two things with this ordinance. Number one is we're looking to basically test the fire hydrants, private fire hydrants. We have about 100 in town. Test those as we do with ours. And that is so that if we do have the businesses can either hire the city to do this, or if they are qualified, they can do it themselves also. The city water department, we test them twice per the NFAPA codes, 24 and 25, and we're asking the private business owners to do the same with theirs. And that is basically so that when the fire department comes up to there, that they know they're going to work. And Terry can speak to that a little bit.
We had, excuse me, we have had one issue with remember the Prodient fire, just a little fire we had a few years back. The one hydrant that was closest to the incident was inoperable at the time. It was a private hydrant. Therefore, we were not able to use that hydrant. We had to draw a line in front of Victorian Inn to supply the lines that were going to cool the tank off so that it would not levy on us. So it's important that we have access to those at all times, and the only way to do that is to maintain them, and if it's not a city hydrant, it falls to the property owner.
I would think that would be a comfort to them to be able to have it checked by. Now, obviously, is there a fee to do that? If it's a private hydrant, I guess I didn't realize there were such a thing as a private hydrant.
We do have a lot of private hydrants, especially in apartment complexes, which is a high life incident if something happens there. So it's very important in that point as well because of the life safety hazard that we have there. So we've not had any issues there, knock on wood, but let's not have that. Let's be a little proactive and make sure that we can have that access if we need it.
Mayor, to answer your question, there is a charge to do it. We currently have quite a few businesses that do hire us today to do it. And generally what we do is we do parts and labor for it. What we'd propose to do is to visit with each of the owners of these hydrants. There's probably 30 or 40 different owners of these 100 hydrants. We'd visit with them and we'd give them what our cost, we have costs down, what it's going to cost. I think it's up to 0 to 5 hydrants, 5 to 7 and on like that.
Okay.
So they could hire us, and the prices, for the inspection is all written up so they know what that cost is up front. And if there's repairs, we would tell them what the repair is going to cost, estimated cost, and for time and materials. So we would visit with that, but there is definitely a cost to doing a private hydrant such as that. And as I said, we do currently do, out of these approximate 100, we do probably 30 to 40 of those now on an annual basis. But as Terry said, we want to make sure that the apartments and the others do operate, because as he said, in an apartment fire or something, time's going to be of the essence, fairly
Right,
major.
yeah.
So that is why we're trying to get these inspected on a biannual basis per the NFAPA codes.
Very good. Any other questions for the gentleman? Okay. Thanks, you two. Appreciate it. Short title on this, Beth?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 2615 of the Official City Code to require testing and maintenance of private fire hydrants, to amend Sections 2614, 2616, 2619, 2628, 2632, 2642, 2643, and 2644 of the Code to change references from Water Commissioner to Water and Sewer Director, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
I would ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5397 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5397 on second and third.
Second that, Your Honor.
Okay, we have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5397 on second and third. Again, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5397 carries on second and third.
All right, next is consideration of approval of ordinance number 5398, creating sanitary sewer extension district number 248, providing for construction of a sanitary sewer main with necessary appurtenances. for the area generally located west of Highway 35. Did I say that wrong? At Vista Road. Can I ask for consideration from one of you?
Second.
All right. Motion with a second. I tell you what, Mark, you're on. Why don't you correct me?
Appurtenances,
Appurtenances, what's that?
associated
Stuff.
materials, associated items. I
Okay,
guess is
stuff.
Probably
Very good. Thank you.
the Dolchek
Stuff.
dictionary.
Let's try that word next time in there, Beth. Stuff. Sorry, Mark.
No, you're fine. The septic tank that serves the house, the residence at 1009 Highway 35 failed. The top actually collapsed inside of this septic. And this property is one where the property is within 300 feet and the house is within 550 feet of the city sewer. So per our city code, he's required to connect. In discussion with the property owner, we kind of told him what his options were as far as how to get sewer to his house. And the decision, he requested that the city create a sanitary sewer extension district. This sewer extension district would serve 3 houses, 3 lots. The map, I believe, is in your agenda packet, all 3 of which are currently served by septics. And so when any of those 3 were to fail, whether planned or unplanned, which they're never planned, so they would have to connect per the same section of code. So this extension district would serve the house that failed and the 2 houses in between the sewer and this property. So this was brought before subcommittee and was approved to proceed with preparing this. The only thing I would note is that in the ordinance, we do provide a project cost estimate. We would ask that, we have, I believe the agenda packet had a $35,000 cost in there. We would like to change that to $40,000 just to allow for, in case we need to pay for right-of-way or items related to that. So, because our original estimate did not include that.
So if I am the second or third one, then do I have to agree to this as well now before it can go forward? Or
The third, this is the third property, so you've got the city sewer, then you got 1005, 1007, and 1009, and 1009 is the one that failed.
Okay.
If the council approves this tonight, it will happen. On sanitary sewer extension districts, I believe if you get a 3/4 vote of the council, so if we get 6 affirmative votes, this sanitary sewer district will happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions for Mark while he's before you?
Mark, the creation of the district allows it so that it can be an extended time period.
Right. One of the positives to a sanitary sewer extension district, it does provide financing to the property owners where you can pay it over a certain number of years. I believe state statute allows you to go up to 20. Historically, we've done 5 years, but we've had discussion of going more on other projects. So you can range that a wide variety anywhere from 5 to 20 years. Okay. Or they do have the option to pay it all up front if they want to avoid the financing.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Beth, short title. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
An ordinance creating sanitary sewer extension district number 248 in the city of Norfolk, Nebraska, establishing the outer boundaries of the district, designating the size, location, and terminal points, referring to the plans, specifications, and engineer's estimate in connection therewith, and to provide for this ordinance being published in pamphlet form and be in full force and effect.
All right, and with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5398 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move that we suspend the rules and pass this ordinance on second and third reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5398 on second and third reading. No further discussion. I would ask you to please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5398 carries on second and third.
And next, we're looking for consideration of approval of the plans, the specification, and engineer's estimate on file in the city offices for sanitary sewer extension district number 248 East Highway 35, as just talked of. That project and authorization for the city clerk to advertise for bids.
I'll make the motion, Your Honor.
Second.
Okay, motion with a second. Not sure there's any further discussion needed, but I will let you certainly, any questions? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
And next is consideration of resolution number 2016-17 approving a sidewalk waiver for Lot 1, Cooper and McKillop subdivision, Stanton County, located at 905 Forest Drive. Looking for consideration motion? Okay, we have a motion with a second. Val, are you speaking to this?
Yes, thank you. This is really the third time the council has seen this piece of property. The first time was for the zone change there in Woodland Park out there on the cul-de-sac. The second time was for the plat to put all three of his lots together so that he can build his garage. And now this comes before you because our code says that once you plat, a new plat, the sidewalk then requirement kicks in. So he's asking for the waiver of the sidewalk requirement. And this area is an SID. There really are no sidewalks except in front of the school for the most part that I can see on the aerial. And unlike the other one, you're outside city limits, so the council does not have the ability to order in sidewalks. So it's pretty much built out. I don't see that, unless people start tearing down houses and building a lot of new stuff, that sidewalk would be required out there.
Okay. Any questions for Val regarding this? No discussion? All right. I would ask you to vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, resolution 2016-17 is adopted.
And finally is consideration of approval to advertise for bids for contractor to install 2 selected influent pumps at the water pollution control plant.
I'll make the motion, Your Honor.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. Hello, go for it.
You've heard this a few times already. We've got 2 pumps that we're in the process of replacing, and these are the front line defense for all the wastewater coming at us. So we want to keep this is 2 of 6 pumps up to par and operating. Back in April, you approved the 2 selection that we and Olson agreed to. And basically, we're just asking for approval here, Mayor and Council, to get approval for contractors to bid and install these 2 selected pumps. So, offer any questions?
Questions at all? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And with that, I would ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, seeing nothing else on the agenda, we're adjourned.